Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We're at 78A. Um, I'm near the top. Um, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, the second line. So we've been continuing to discuss the details of who a Kohen can't marry and what are the consequences for his children. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Kohen Gadol Ba'alman Alokashnayim. Kohen Gadol who sleeps with a widow, he incurs two punishable offenses. Achas mishum lo yikach. The Torah says, Isha Gusha um, it says lo yikach, he can't take a widow, and that means marriage. V'achas mishum lo yichalel. And there's an additional detail that says you can't make her a halal. In other words, best translation I have here is profane her. Okay, so it's like two aspects of the same thing. Doesn't he also make his children halalim? So Gemara says b'shelo gomar biyasa. What if he didn't complete the act of sleeping together? So in other words, you can withdraw before there's any semen ejaculated. So in that case, there would be no possibility of children. Um, I wonder if the Gemara could have also said that you don't know if you're going to have children. Like you can sleep with a woman, but it doesn't mean that necessarily children are going to result from that. Maybe that prohibition is only violated if the children do result from that, but the Gemara doesn't go there. Let's see. Masi Brava, Rava asks, Amano Grusha. What if there's a woman who's both a widow and a divorcee, from obviously from two different men? Loka and the Kohen sleep with her. Loka Mishum Shnei Shemos. There's two aspects of the prohibition here. My love Shnei Shemos V'tulo. So does Rava mean only two? So because before we said like even if you just sleep with a widow, the Kohen just sleeps with a widow, that's already two. So now adding a Grusha, adding the fact that she is also a divorcee, does that mean isn't that a third one? So where says well, Shnei Shemos Alza means two additional ones, right? So Shnei Shemos Alza, like twice for each one. Um, so in other words, for each woman, he's got two prohibitions. Sorry, for each not for each woman, for each aspect of the woman's identity, widow and divorcee. There's two for each. But then the end of that mission says if he sleeps with a divorcee or someone who underwent chalitza, he's only liable for one. So it seems like that the grusha is not being addressed in the first one, or it seems like there's only one prohibition. He's only chayav for that one for the both aspects of that one prohibition or of that one woman who's a grusha. Okay, but really there's two sets of prohibitions here. One because the woman is a grusha, one because she's chalutza. Chalutza derabanan. So, okay. No, I'm sorry. So grusha v'chalutza means one woman who is both divorcee and a chalutza. Um, and the reason that he's only chayav for one, he's only liable once, is presumably because the Torah forbids him to sleep with a divorcee, but it's only rabbinic that he can't sleep with a chalutza, with someone who underwent chalutza. Because remember, the chalutza is of course a widow, but a regular kohen can sleep with a widow. It's only kohen gadol who's prohibited, but the rabbis said no, you can't have a chalutza. So now the Gemara challenges that. The chalusa derabanan, is that true that Kohen with the chalusa is only a rabbinic prohibition? Vatanya grusha in the grusha chalusa minayin. We have a brisa that says the Torah says don't sleep with a divorcee. So that means only divorcee. How do I know you can't sleep with a woman who's chalutza. Talmud Lomar ve'isha. Ve'isha grusha meisha. And the woman who is divorced. Because it just said either without the vav or maybe without the word ve'isha. So that comes to include chalutza. So that means it is it is deraisa. It is from the Torah. Where's this midrabanan ukaras machtaviyalan? No, it's not a real derivation from a verse. The verse, as we sometimes say, is just nasmachta. It's just a support for rabbinic prohibition, but really it is just a rabbinic prohibition. Okay, Amar Abai. Kiddush lote. The Kohen who marries one of these forbidden women, even if he didn't go through with the marriage, it didn't consummate the marriage, it's a prohibition. Baal loka. And then what if you sleep with the Kohen sleeps with a woman without marrying her? It's a prohibition. So both the act of Kiddushin and the act of cohabiting are both forbidden. How do we know this? The Torah says you shouldn't take, and taking is also the word that we use. Ki kachi shisha. The whole idea of marriage is contained in that when he takes her. And when the Torah says about the Kohen, he should not profane her. That means sleeping with her, regardless of whether it was Kiddushin. Rav Amar Baal Loka. Rav says no, it's only for sleeping with her. But just Kiddushin is not enough to violate this rule. They're linked together. Like, don't take her and profane her, right? So matam lo yikach mishum lo yichalel. Like the whole issue of not marrying her is because that leads to cohabiting. So it's really just the sleeping together that is prohibited. Umoda Abaye b'machzir grushaso. So Abaye has said that 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 Kiddushin is forbidden with a divorced woman, but Abaye says the exception is if you divorce a woman and then remarry her, shem kiddush v'lo baal ein aloka. In that case, you're marrying a divorcee, right? And remember now, generally, we assume you can't remarry your divorcee, but that's only if she has married someone else in the meantime, right? So you can't take her back after she has married someone else. But if you marry her, she's still single, and then divorce her, and she's still single, and then you remarry her. That, according to Lai, would not be a problem for a Kohen. Why? Because when the Torah says you can't remarry her, it says the first husband can't take her again to be his wife. So to be the wife is understood as being as sleeping together. And that's not the case here. So a little tenuous, right? That you understand the idea of remarrying your divorcee from one verse and then you apply it somewhere else for the Kohen, but that's what the Bible says. Rava admits that when he says you can't do either Kiddushin or Bila or sleeping together, however, when it comes to a Kohen Gadol marrying a widow, that if he sleeps with her and even without Kiddushin, you still are punished, you still get lashes, because Torah says you shouldn't profane your seed in among your people, and he actually did profane her. So it's a little unclear to me that even though it's linked to Kiddushin, but it's not in this case. I'm not entirely clear why in the case of we have this extra verse, indicating that any kind of chilul, any kind of profaning the woman by sleeping with her, even without marriage, that's included. So that is said specifically in the Torah about the Kohen Gadol with Rama. What about a man who divorces his wife and then sleeps with her without marrying her again? So then that is, both of them admit that that is not prohibited, or it doesn't get lashes. Derech likuchin asher Torah, because the Torah is talking about, again, when it talks about remarriage, it's talking about like the normal course of events where you remarry somebody before you sleep together again. Rabbi Yomer bas ger zachar kavaschal. So back to the Mishnah, we said that the daughter of a ger, of a convert, of a male convert, is forbidden to a kohen like the daughter of a halal. All right, so recall that in the case of a halal, of someone who violated these marriage rules for a kohen, the children are also ineligible for kohanim, as kohanim, both to be kohanim or to marry kohanim. And here we're saying, Rabbi Huda in the Mishnah was saying that the same applies to a ger. Hadin saying, why? Now here we're going to have a string of kind of tenuous proposals for Kal V'chomer that are all being struck down, and they seem rather obvious to me. That like the objection seemed obvious, so I'm not sure like why the Gemara is going through this exercise of putting up straw men to knock down. But we'll see what you think. Hadin Nosing, these are all logical deductions. You have a halal, right, who is Jewish, right? His from Jewish birth, everything about him is kosher, or her is kosher, and yet bito psula, because the mother, because the parents slept together illegally, because the father was a kohen and the woman was a grusha, let's say, was divorcee. So that daughter is considered a halal. Ger shabami tipa psula. So a ger that doesn't even come from originally Jewish genealogy, enodin shabito psula. Certainly, we should say that. So Gemara says, "Malachal shekin yishrasa bavera." What are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with being a ger, right? So the ger is not like born in improper ways. His conception was not improper, whereas a halal, the conception was improper. So how can you apply one to the other? Whereas says kohen gadol b'aloni yochiach. You know why? Because look at the case of the kohen gadol and the widow, right? She'ein yitzirasa bavera. The kohen gadol is not, doesn't have any problem with his genealogy, and still bito psula, because he sleeps because the mother is a widow, the daughter is a halala. So Malakohen Gadol Balmana, what proof can you get from that? She can be also bavera. It's the same thing. Like he wasn't supposed to. That was an illegal union. Sure, the Kohen Gadol is from good genealogy, but he messed up, right? So of course his daughter would be a halal. What does that have to do with the ger? So Gemara says halal yochiach. So then so we can like overturn that by saying the case of a halal, that the halal didn't himself, the child of an illegal kohen union did not himself do anything wrong, and yet his children, his line his children are considered halalim. So it's become circular. Most of the common denominator is that they're not most like most people, right? They have characteristics that are not common. So a ger is also, there's minority of people are ger. So just as these other unusual circumstances, like the kohen who marries a grusha, the children are halalim. So a ger too, since the ger is also an unusual circumstance, we're going to say it is forbidden to a kohen. So this is kind of, I've always understood the idea of who a kohen can marry as kind of an extra level of some idea of pure bloodedness, right, of purity. But not pure bloodedness. I've always understood it to be as that the wife of a kohen can't have belonged to anyone else. It's kind of a elitist thing, right? That the wife of a kohen can't have been the wife of anybody else. So, of course, it doesn't apply to Almana, just to Grusha. But there's some kind of behavioral issue here. Whereas now that we're saying that it's the same as a ger, it seems to be more like the Kohen has to be someone who is not. He has to marry from from a more mainstream line. It's hard to characterize really. But the Gemara knocks this down as well. Well, but the thing about the Kohen Gadol with the Almana and the Kohen with the Grusha, a regular halal, those both there was a improper act that brought these the conception about. Whereas with a ger, there's no improper act. So it's kind of the same thing as we were saying before. Why would you apply this restriction to a ger where nothing improper was done? So Gemara says, "Lo tema kohen gadol b'almana yochiach, ela ema mitzri rishon yochiach." You know what I'm going to prove it from? Never mind the kohen gadol and the widow. A mitzri, an Egyptian convert, that's going to show us the way here. So, mala mitzri rishon shekain ena roy lavo b'chal. A first, like an Egyptian can convert, but can't marry into the Jewish people for 2 generations. So who can they marry? Another Egyptian convert, right? And then they have a child, and that child also is restricted to another Egyptian convert. They have a child, then that person is Jewish enough, as it were, to marry anybody else. So so just as a Mitzri, an Egyptian convert, there was no sin involved in his conception. He was born in Mitzri. It's not his fault. Nobody did anything wrong. Nobody did anything against the Torah, and yet can't marry a Kohen or frankly anybody else. So the Gemara says, well, wait a minute. Malam Mitzri Rishon Shekain in a royal level Bakal. But you're trying to make an inference from a Egyptian convert to a non-Egyptian convert, a regular convert who is permitted to marry anybody. So why shouldn't that person be allowed to marry a Kohen? So halal yochiach. So that we can get from a halal, because a halal can't marry anybody. It can marry anybody else, but still can't marry a Kohen, right? So you could apply that to a ger. But then you become circular. So shoshaben she'enon barov kahal ubi tafsula. So now we're going to apply that same thing, that since these are unusual cases and the daughter of such a union is not permitted to a Kohen, we're going to apply that to a ger as well. And the other ger, she'enon barov kahal, since a ger is an unusual situation, ubi tafsula. So the daughter would be forbidden to a Kohen. So the Gemara still object. Tamala says shoshaben she'came posling b'viyasa. The Kohen, like the Kohen cases, the halal of the Kohen cases, they pass on their invalidity to a Kohen by sleeping with someone else and through their children. So that doesn't apply to an Egyptian convert. We're going to say that Rabbi Yehuda also holds that a regular ger, he also makes a woman forbidden to a Kohen by sleeping with her. So not only are the children, according to this view, forbidden to a Kohen, but the woman, the mother, like the woman who the ger sleeps with, also becomes forbidden to a Kohen. And we get that from comparing it to the 2 cases of the Kohen. So I think there's an outlying opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, but now we've at least resolved that by or understood how it's derived by making it even more restrictive, that not only are the children of a ger ineligible for a Kohen, the daughters, but the woman herself who sleeps with a ger is then becomes ineligible for a Kohen. Okay. Now the next thing in the mission was Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer ger. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov said that a ger who is who marries a regular Yisrael, a regular Jew, So the daughter, Rav Lazar says the daughter can marry a Kohen, but um, but if a male ger marries a female ger, that daughter is forbidden to the Kohen. And Rabbi Yossi said in the Mishnah, even the child, the daughter of two gerim, male and a female ger, that daughter is fit to marry a Kohen. So now we're going to continue to understand these opinions. But first, we cite a fourth opinion. Tanya, you have a Bryce, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Omer, a fourth opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Yoris Pechusa mi Bashalosh Shanim V'Yom Echad. If a girl converted before she turned 3, then she isn't with regard to gay with regard to a Kohen, she's not considered a gay. She's considered regular person, and you may recall from other contexts that any intercourse that occurs before a girl turns 3 is not considered as significant in terms of halacha. So she would still be considered, as it were, a virgin. And how do I know that this is the case? In the war against Midian, the Torah, Moshe tells the people, all of the girls, the young girls, you can keep alive, right? They were supposed to kill all the males and all the women who had already slept with men, but all the girls they could keep. But wait a minute. Their group of soldiers included Kohanim. So we know, for example, specifically that Pinchas, who was a Kohen, was among them, among the warriors. So he was also included in. You could take children as booty, presumably in order to marry them or to take them as wives. Doesn't so by seeming to allow that for Pinchas the Kohen, it seems like that allows a young girl to be who is a captive and thereby a ger to be married to a Kohen. And so how do the rabbis get around that? Yeah, you can take those children as booty, but not to marry them, rather as slaves. Okay. And all four of these opinions are dealing with the same source, but they interpret it differently, of course. There's a verse in Yechezkel. You may recall that this is one of the sticking points of Yechezkel that the rabbis labored over trying to reconcile with the Torah because the rules are a little different. Yechezkel says, widows and divorcees, the Kohanim can't take for wives. They can only take Besulos Mizrahi Beis Yisrael, virgins from Israelite seed. Okay, what does that mean? Rabbi Yehuda Savar Adis Kol Zera Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda says it has to be purebred, right? All the parentage has to be for a Kohen has to be from Israel. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Savar Mizera. Now it says Mizera Israel, from the seed of the house of Israel. Meaning even if it's only partly Israelite seed. Rabbi Yossi Savar Misha Nizru Israel, one that became seeded, as it were, in Israel. In other words, as long as both of her parents had converted before she was conceived, then she's okay. And Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Savar Misha Nizru B'Suleha Israel. Here he's really reaching in interpreting the verse. One whose virginity came to light or came to be while she was in the house of Israel. In other words, she became a virgin, which happens in this halachic sense when you turn 3. Then you're permitted. So if you were already in the house of Israel at that point, then you become classified legally as permitted to a Kohen. Okay, that's a little weird. I'm aware of Nachman Rabba. Um, Nachman said to Rabbi, Haikra, Reisha b'choin gadol, the Seifa b'choin hedya. So going back to that verse, the beginning of the pasuk said the Kohen can't marry a widow or a divorcee. Well, that must be talking about who? Must be talking about a Kohen Gadol, right? Because that's the only Kohen type of Kohen who can't marry a widow. Regular Kohen can marry a widow. The Seif of a Kohen had it, so you're going to say that the end of the pasuk is talking about a regular Kohen. You're determining like who a regular Kohen can marry. Yes. The Ksav Kra Hache. This says, can you give me any other examples? Does the Torah write that way? Um, Splitting a verse into, bifurcating the verse into two parts where it refers to two different things. I'll give you an example. You'll see the Ner Elohim Terem Yichveh Ushmuel Shochev Beichal Hashem. This is the initiation of Shmuel as Navi. So he is a young man sleeping or he's living, in the temple environment or the Mishkan environment, and God appears to him as follows: the candle, the lamp of God, and the lamp of Mishkan had not yet been put out, and Shmuel was sleeping in the Heichal, in the sanctuary. So he couldn't sleep there. The only person who can sit in the temple courtyard was kings of the house of David. So how could it mean? So what does it mean that Shmuel was lying there in the courtyard? No, we split up the pasuk. We take the first phrase in the end, and put in parentheses the middle of Shmuel Shochev. Shmuel was sleeping, was lying down wherever he was lying down. So in order to kind of solve this textual anomaly, we kind of split the pasuk and say that parts of it are referring to a different topic. Same thing we're doing. Again in Yechezkel, a widow that is a widow from another Kohen that they can marry. So Kohen in Yisrael, so that's different than the Torah, right? The Torah says that a regular Kohen can marry any almana. So here it's Yechezkel saying can only marry a widow of another Kohen, but not a widow of a non-Kohen. Hakin Kamar explains like this: Mikohen Yikachu. Mishar Kohanim Yikachu. In other words, the widow of a Kohen they can take of the other Kohanim. That refers to the other Kohanim, not the Kohen Gadol. It's the Kohen Gadol that can't marry a widow. Well, again, a little bit of a difficult read, but that's how Gemara has to wiggle out of it. And this was part of, as I said before, this is part of the whole difficulty with these passages in Yechezkel that don't appear to accord with the rules of the Torah. So the Gemara has to do these kind of backflips to get them to align. We also have a brisa, Mikohen Yikachu, Mishar Kohanim Yikachu. Same thing said in the brisa. Or Omer Mina Masim Lekahuna Yikachu. Another way to explain this is when it says you can take the widow of a Kohen can take the widow of another Kohen. It means a widow of one of those who can marry their daughter to a Kohen they can take. So it's excluding the widow of a convert whose daughter cannot be married by a Kohen, according to Rabbi Yehuda's view. And Rabbi Yehuda is consistent. Yamar bas ger zachar kavas chalal zachar. He had said, as we saw in our Mishnah, that the daughter of a male ger is forbidden to a Kohen like the daughter of a chalal. So anyone who you can marry his daughter, you can marry his widow. If you can't marry the daughter, then you can't marry the widow. So therefore, it's part of the pasuk which is talking about the rule that the widow of a convert is not permitted to a Kohen. Okay, and then Rabbi Yossi said in the Mishnah, Afger Shanosa Giyaris, that even the daughter of two gerim, of a male and a female ger, if both parents are gerim, that's still permitted to a Kohen. Amar Rav Huna Mishmei Rav Huna says halacha for Rabbi Yossi. This is the halacha. However, from the time of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, Nagu Kohanim Silsul Biatzman. The Kohanim, I'm not sure how to translate Silsul, but the Kohanim, took this chumrah on themselves, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, and they conducted themselves according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, who says that such a person with two ger parents is forbidden to a Kohen. So even though that's not the real rule, the Kohanim adopted it anyway. Amar Nachman said, Amar Huna told me, Bali Malech, if let's say a Kohen comes to ask, can you marry the daughter of two converts? Morim lo Korlos ben Yaakov. You tell him no, you're not supposed to do that, as the Kohanim have taken on themselves. But Nasa, that he already went and married her, then you don't make them divorce, because really the rule is that it's permitted. Just the Kohanim, decided not to do it, but somebody did it. Then we say that let's not make them divorce, because you didn't really violate the real rule. Okay. Moving on to the next Mishnah. Homer Beniza Mamzer. A person says, this is my son, and he is a mamzer. He was born from an adulterous relationship. You don't believe him, because Rashi says, first of all, that the father is related to the son, so even by his own admission, so he can't give testimony about him. And even if both parents say that she's pregnant, but the fetus is the result of an adulterous relationship and would be born a mamzer, we don't believe them. Rabbi Yehuda but Rabbi Yehuda says they are believed, and so the Gemara will of course analyze why. My vafilu shneim. So, what's the what does it add to say that even if the father and the mother testify about this, if the problem is that they're related to him, they're both related to him. The lomi baya color. So yeah, you're right. It's like not only this, but also that lomi baya the lokim lay. The father cannot be sure, right? Like when in the absence of paternity tests, and now we're even talking about before the child was born. So you're never, the father can't be 100% sure that the child is his, but the mother knows. Or she has more knowledge. Even the mother, the kimle, she can be sure, like if this is the only person that she slept with, or the timing is such, etc. Lo mehma, we still don't believe it. Lo mivay hechadis lechazaka the kashrus, and not only where the child has a chazaka, like that there's nothing before the father came along, there was no reason to say that the child is there. That's why we don't believe the father. Even if the case is about a fetus where it hasn't been born yet, and so maybe the chazaka doesn't apply, but we still don't believe. But we don't have money. But Reuda says that the parents are believed. Kiddushin, we have a brisa yakir. So this is having to do with the laws of inheritance. So the Torah says that the father has to recognize the eldest and give him an extra inheritance portion. Yakirenu lacherim. So by using this word yakir, it's implying that the father has the ability to determine who is the firstborn or who is the parent, determine the parentage of a child. He's got this special, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he has this special namonos, a special credibility. And so Rabbi Yehuda also says a man can identify which of his sons is the firstborn. And similarly, so a person can say, this, my child, is the son of a divorcee or of a chalutza, and thereby make him invalid to a kohen. But the rabbis say, no, the father is not believed. The Rabbah. Bishlam Rabbi Yehuda Hainu D'Chsiv Yakir. So Rabbi Yehuda has a textual verse, right? It says the father can recognize who's the firstborn. El Rabbanan Yakir Lamali. So what are the rabbis left of that? So the Tsari Chakela. That's only where we don't have any other way of determining which is the firstborn. Let's say they're identical twins, and you can't tell, or I'm sure you can come up other um, with other scenarios. So, uh, in what sense can the father be? Is the father credible to identify as the firstborn? Like for what purpose? Lustus Lopishnayim, as we said, to give him a double inheritance, as is right. It's first time Pshita, that's obvious. Why? Lama Likra, what do you need a verse for? Migo Dibayim Maisale Matana. Like the father has the power while he's alive to gift his eldest son or any of his sons whatever he wants, right? He can give him in his lifetime, he can give him the inheritance. So therefore, he should be believed for after his death when it's an actual case of inheritance. He could have given it to him. So what it says, "Ben chasim shenaf ulachar mikan." What about, um, like right now I have, $1 million in my bank account, right? So I have the ability to give 2/3 of it to my oldest son and 1/3 to my younger son. So therefore, because I have the ability to do that, we believe me when I say that that's what's going to happen after I die, because this one's before. But that's today, right? Tomorrow I win the lottery and I got another $1 million. So so like um so um I've already identified who is the firstborn, and now it affects his inheritance of money that I came into afterwards, right? So it's not like when I identified him as the firstborn, I had the ability to give him that money. I didn't own this extra money yet, so that's why you need the pasuk. So, but Rameir Diamar Adam Machna Dawar Shlobal Yalam. But what about Rameir? Rameir says I can do that actually. I can gift something to that doesn't exist yet. If I'm expecting something to happen to me, I can give it as a gift to somebody else, even if it hasn't happened yet. So Yakir Lamali. So then again, what do you need the pasuk for? So my answer is Shanafalok Shugo says, what if I'm already incapable, if I'm already incapable of managing my affairs when I get this new money. So then you can't say, even according to a mayor, I can't gift that property that I receive while I'm on my deathbed. Okay, so even to a mayor, there are limits. So there is a scenario where I don't have the ability to gift this while I'm still alive. Uh, so that's why I need the pasuk to tell me that I'm still credible in identifying who is my bechor, so that he will inherit double after death. And I guess we'll stop here for today. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.